better than that guess. Whoops. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. Sorry it is a later meeting, and sorry it was rescheduled. I'm glad that we are here to make some progress on this discussion about process. Hope everybody, I guess there's agendas out there, but just added something about the fee review, something that came up last time. So let's kind of jump into it. I had a chance to meet with Dean Gwinner today. And so Dean Gwinner was like the dean's representative, and I was the student representative on that special committee that we've been kind of operating from with the process report. And so we had a good chat today, kind of wanted to let him know what concerns we had, and had a good discussion about that. So stepping through, just to remind everybody, and I can pull it up on the screen. Does somebody have a need for me to pull that up and step through it on the screen, or does everybody have computers or otherwise printed copies of that? Anybody? Brandon, are you good? Okay, cool. Sounds good. All right, well, in that case, we'll skip that time-consuming step. And then, Jonathan, so we have a collegiate report. Can you introduce yourself real quick so everybody knows who you are?
Yeah, I'm Rachel Hogan. I'm the news editor at Collegiate.
Jonathan, can you send her the
Yep, you bet.
thing we're looking at?
I will.
I assume it'd be helpful for you. Okay.
I'll need to find it, so it might be a second.
Yeah,
What's your email address?
rhogan@kstatecollegiate.com.
Let's go, Steven. All right.
Is it K-State Collegian?
Yep, no hyphens or anything.
Awesome.
I'm gonna make a smart ass remark, but I better not. First it is the Wichita State Collegiate. Oh.
Right.
Sorry, Jonathan. Of course it's a K-State Collegiate.
After hours. After hours issue.
TFSC after hours.
TFSC after hours. All right. So just jumping into kind of some of the things that got brought up last time about, let's see, it was about membership, or excuse me, chairing the committee. So I know that as it's written in the proposal, the Tuition and Fees Strategies Committee representative that is representing the college of the College Tuition Committee would chair the committee. However, I know that there was a lot of discussion last time about kind of some of the administrative overhead there and the fact that's going to be a difficult job. So all that combined with the fact that we want to maintain kind of the neutral person chairing that, from Miranda's comment that she brought up last time about how somebody could theoretically intentionally derail the process of a CTC in order to alter the course of action there. So one of the things that I've bounced off of, and Steve and I talked about it, and I talked about it with Dean Gwinner, is for consistency purposes as well, having Jonathan and I chair those college tuition committees as well, and then having the TFSC rep serve as a voting member. What are the thoughts on that?
Did you get any feedback from Dr. Bosco?
Dr. Bosco said he just kind of was more concerned about the
College specific.
the college
Okay.
chairing it. So as much as I like that it would give opportunity for that representative to lead, but I think one of the things is that with Jonathan and I being the point of contact for the deans already, and with that happening kind of anyway on that side, we can, with help from, I think that the representative would be a big help with administration and not like with administering the committee, but not having to worry about actually doing the chairman side of things. And then Jonathan, I would handle the logistics there as well.
So if there were like 4 colleges, would you do 2 and Jonathan do 2?
Yeah.
You wouldn't both be doing every one of them.
I think we would establish a lead, but then when it comes to the chairing, it'd be like it is now.
Okay.
We have different things, yeah.
I'm just thinking about the time that would commit to you all.
Takes a lot of time, but I think it's a good investment of time.
Yeah, they're probably banking on a raise now.
Exactly, yeah. That's part of the fee.
Well, I think the idea is good. I think the idea is good. I just want clarification. Is this the 2 co-chairs of the committee chairing each of these college committees? Is this an idea for this year, or is this an idea for the future? Is this just like a trial
I think this in general is a trial run. However,
Sounds
I think this would be what we put in perpetuity. And if it comes out that it was like, be better if it was closer to college, we can evaluate that then.
Sounds good.
So I guess it's kind of disorganized in my mind, so I apologize if it's not making sense. Please let me know. But I did a dry run of this explanation with Jonathan earlier, so I think that there's a couple changes that are going to be that would be different into next year. One of which is that the kind of the time frame, and I know that there's been a lot of concern expressed about can we accomplish this change this year given our time frame. I think the answer is yes, we can, because even next year, like the way it's written is that the date that the proposals are due, which by the way is tomorrow, the date and Jonathan and I have a meeting with provost on Friday, so we're eager for that.
Thursday.
Oh, Thursday, yeah. Tomorrow's 31st.
One more day of
Well, I thought you had Monday, too. That works. All kinds of good. Yeah, sorry, thank you. But so one of the things that we will be able to talk about then is, into next year though, is that we wouldn't want to charge a college tuition committee before we knew if the provost wanted to let that fee continue in the process. Administratively, logistically, I don't think it makes sense for us to charge a committee in November, because it's quite possible that we could go through this whole thing and the provost would say, well, that's not happening this year. And I think there's always a chance of that. So, for that reason, I think that we're still in the same boat that we would be in, which is hard and fast, but I don't know what isn't in this kind of process, even, any other year. So what happens in the fall that I think is important is, I was thinking about having the TFSC rep, appointed early. We're talking like September, which we could have done this year. I think there's so much going on. We just didn't really have anything for them to do early on, but that shouldn't be an issue. And then require a mandatory meeting between the rep and the dean that you represent, or like the dean of the college that you represent. So that conversation happens early on. You kind of get a feel for is there going to be a fee proposal coming this year? And so that the rep starts working with the dean, and it can be a part of the outreach as well. So that was another thing that was expressed is does the college tuition committee play a role in the college-wide outreach? And so what I'm envisioning, and something that I think I wasn't very clear on last time, is that the dean will manage the college outreach in the first semester and even early in the second semester. And then part of what that college outreach is it's presented to the college tuition committee. So, and it says, here's what I've heard from the college. So we've had X number of open forums, and here's what we've heard in those open forums, and that's kind of what we're thinking. But then the voting and stuff really comes with the college tuition committee. So while I think that the college tuition committee does help to guarantee student outreach, I meant more our student outreach, not the deans. I think the dean still needs to do their own student outreach, needs to go out and say to their college, here's what we're doing, and have this. I know there are some concerns about propaganda was the word that got tossed around. I agree with that concern as well. However, I think that that's one of the unique things about having the rep work with the dean early on and get members involved. The other thing is I don't think it's as siloed of a process as we might be thinking of it. So I think that a lot of the reps that will serve on the college tuition committee are going to be a part of those conversations in November, even if they're not officially charged. And I think that a lot of the folks in this room will probably attend. I'd encourage you all to attend, even if you're not officially on the college tuition committee, attend the college tuition committee so that, when TFSC gets a recommendation from the college tuition committee, it's not like we have to go back and dig through old minutes to figure out what it's been like, but we've all kind of witnessed it. We're all kind of aware of what's going on. So that's kind of my thought on that. Let's see, what else we have going on?
What about creating, I know down here on another bullet point, you said discuss criteria and standards for fees. Could we outline
Absolutely.
how much outreach, if we want them to have a survey, how many maybe percentage of students in that college we want to be represented by that survey, that kind of standard?
You bet. And so I think that that gets interesting this year. I think there is a lot of still opportunity for that. That's something I met with Dean Garner about today. So if you flip to page, or scroll, they're not page numbers on here, 1, 2, 3, 4, where it says, lastly, the TFSWG recommends the college tuition increase proposals at minimum. Has everybody seen that? So those questions So Dean Winter had talked about how that is something that's been missing, is like, and I think it's contributed to some inconsistencies in this room about what the different colleges are presenting. So for example, last year, just to be candid, human ecology came and said, we're gonna hire faculty. And the committee was like, that's not specific enough. And Dean Winter came and said, I'm gonna hire a business law professor because I think that's important. And that's an inconsistency that we'd like to address. So be very upfront about, we want specifically that, and I'm going to edit this to make that first bullet even more specific, and that's something that Dean Winter discussed today. The other thing is like to be able to send this question list to the dean, some of our thoughts like about this year. Like candidly, we've had some discussions. That's our third and fourth bullet point of today's meeting, which we'll finish on the 13th. Is what are our criteria? What are our standards for the fees? So that what should the deans be prepared to answer questions like that? And I think we can say, for example, something that Dr. Bosco's wording from last week, will not consider a fee unless the college is actively trying to secure support for low-income students who would be affected by such an increase. How do you quantify that? We'll get to, but that would be part of our discussion. That would be part of the presentation. And so deans are more honestly prepared to answer our questions, and it's just more upfront. There's not the lack of the unknown. Because I feel like that contributed, I think, to part of the success of the business fee, and candidly, the failure of the human ecology fee is just the amount of information. And Dean Winter had that. I think that was just that's just the way it was. Like I don't think there's just an inconsistency that I think we have the opportunity to fix. Okay, so that's kind of part of it. One of the things that Dean Winter and I also discussed today, kind of last thing on here before we get into the review process, is for this year, like what we can, ways in which we can establish the standards, for outreach, because there has been outreach already. I think that's one of the things that the committees are going to have to consider is what has the college done. And I think this will be a little bit of a challenge this year because you have the College of Engineering, for example, that's taken a student vote and had really good participation, and other colleges haven't. So there's still kind of this discrepancy this year, but that's something that we need to develop, I think, is what should be what should the outreach look like? So to your point, way around the way to get there, yes, I think that we can absolutely do that. I think that we can start that this year by saying, based on what you have, we need this in our presentation, but then also saying that for next year, since we're, gonna, do it in this way, here's exactly what this outreach should, not exactly what it should look like, but here's the outreach should look like. That's the other thing, is like for engineering, big college, the college outreach made a lot of sense, where you had, like we had a chemical engineering one, Jonathan had a mechanical engineering one, but for like architecture, planning, and design, that doesn't make sense. So, right? I mean,
yeah.
Right. I mean, you just want to have like specific, just because they're small. But
We're too small for that type of stuff.
Right. But okay.
Jack?
So what questions on the first, just the process, not about review. We'll get to review in a second.
So this list on page 4, this is something that we'll be working on developing this year, as in and we can continue to submit things that we are looking for.
Please, please, as soon as possible.
Yeah, 3 more.
Excellent. Because this will be what I send to the deans
Awesome.
after next week when the provost knows which ones are going to go forward. Sarah.
Sorry, I'm
You're
wrapping my head around things.
No, do it. Please
So-
do. And also, I know I'm running through this and I know there's a lot of information, but
So
what are your questions?
the rep or whoever would sit in here, they only oversee that the process was done correctly, right?
No, the rep's a voting member of the college tuition committee.
Okay.
The rep would be just a normal member in addition to the caucus leaders and
And
everybody
then the
else.
whole committee make sure that the process was done correctly, or like was it like last time
You
you
remember
talked
last-
to other people? that
Yeah.
are
So
not
that's
part of the college?
so you would play a role in that, but you also do have a vote. So if it was, that you're a bad example, but because you're ex officio, but like let's say it's arts and sciences,
Mhm.
Miranda would both play that observer role where she would be able to tell if the process being followed correctly. She also has a vote, but then Dalton would be in there as well, and Nate as observers as well.
I just know when I was in a different college, I was not even allowed to be a rep because I did not support the fee. And so I just wanna know
I-
if something like that doesn't fall through the cracks.
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons why we kind of want to move the chair out of there, out of the hand of the rep, because I wholeheartedly disagree with the whole pretext of that idea that you would pick somebody based on their belief about a fee in any direction.
Yeah, that's,
And I think that would also need to
it's
be
not fair.
selecting the person in college early enough that people really don't have an opinion on a potential fee that might be happening.
Right.
And of course, that's gonna speak to legislative expediency,
Yeah, absolutely.
things like that.
Well, Mike, that's what Jonathan and I were talking about. It's like we didn't really have a plan to get this group going fast because we didn't have anything until December, or January. Whereas now it's like, well, here we come November at the latest. So that's kind of that. All right, what questions about the process for new fees and tuition? Keep in mind, tuition's just the same as it always is. Yes, absolutely.
How do they get so much feedback from, what was it, engineering, is that what you said it was?
Yeah.
Business.
Well, so it kind of depends on the college. So like this year, I know the College of Engineering had a college-wide vote.
Okay.
So they gave out ballots to every student had the opportunity to vote, and like I think 2/3 of the college participated, which was really pretty incredible, I think. But other colleges, it's like forums. They'll send an email like a dean's
Okay.
forum. You've
Yeah,
seen those or whatever. But trying to think of what else.
Arts and Sciences sent out a listserv that had a Qualtrics survey in it, so it was optional.
I was gonna say, architecture just sent out a survey through email, so.
Do you guys know what type of percent returns you guys got?
There were over 500 that took it, but you didn't have to technically be in Arts and Sciences to get to take it. And I'd like to know that some people outside of that did.
So is that just like students who are taking 1 credit hour or something? We're also
It
included.
was sent out to the Arts and Sciences listserv, but I also did outreach to classes and I sent it out to SGA and that kind of thing, and so other people gave feedback, which I felt was fine. I mean, everyone takes Arts and Sciences classes to graduate. So.
I don't tell you, the people by class go to you.
Did engineering pass those out in classes, or how did they? regulate
For
that?
our department, they specifically targeted large lectures.
Okay.
And club meetings. We had like a BAE club or ATM club.
Okay, I think every department went about it differently. So BAE could have done that way, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what you guys did.
We had a forum. We have a assembly every week, and we had rather than a speaker, we talked about it. So
We had classes, it would come in, the department head would lecture us and they passed out the voting forms, so we took the 5 minutes of class to do it.
So did anyone have
Computer science had a
double
video.
classes
Yeah.
that it would have gotten a ballot passed out to?
What's that?
Anyone would have had double classes that a ballot would have been passed out to?
Potentially.
Yeah.
You also could have had no classes that had a ballot.
That's true.
That was my case. So there was a form at the end. It was like the very last push they had, and there was like a dozen people at the forum.
Also, sorry I was late, I was at the enrollment management thing, just wanted to.
also just to keep the focus on we're hearing some concerns about the way that was done. That would be excellent conversation we had in the college tuition committee, but I'd probably like to keep it out of here. Not because I don't want to have the conversation, because I do, and I would be a part of that, but just to make sure we're talking about process. But does that answer your question?
Yeah,
though?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. Nate, what's up?
I was gonna say, yeah, we had 50% turnout for
Yeah.
ours, so it was pretty good.
I think you guys would want to set some standards, though.
Absolutely.
Say we expect at least this many. Wherever percent or whatever threshold you guys have,
Yeah.
set your threshold and say,
Right.
the expectation is you're going to get at least this. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
whatever you guys feel like that is, then that gives them their guideline on. Because I think in general, if you give students time during class, they'll take it. You know what I mean? In outside class, it's going to be rough. You know what I mean? I guess. And so you're going to have to set a standard, and they're going to have to know that they're going to have to go at that level of
Right.
Work, I guess, and things to get the information if that's the expectation.
And like I said, the challenge is this year we're going to operate on what's been done, but that's absolutely part of our challenge this year, as well as to create the path that'll work for next year as well.
business examples have taught us anything, setting specific metrics leads to unethical behavior. So if we're saying we want 60% of the college to participate in the survey in order for us to consider a fee, then the deans could potentially do any number of things to try to bolster that number of participation. So I think whatever the college, the CTC or TFSC, they should look at that, how many people could participate in that survey to figure out how much they should weight that in their particular conversation. Because I love setting a threshold, but I think that the percent of people participating could also speak to how well the dean or the college tried to actually get that information out there to the students.
Sure. So, sorry, I'm going to cut off this this conversation because that's bullet point 3. I just want to make sure that everybody's good on. I appreciate that, Steve. I'm not saying I don't, just to make sure we're on track. So, other questions on the process? Other concerns on the process?
About the only thing is I think that TFSC should still hold. It shouldn't judge like the entire proposal, but I think it should still have the ability to say, how is this impacting all students?
So, and I think, so I got your comment on the document about that about TFSC reserving the right to basically say, we don't think that the fee hurts, certain students, low-income students, and without enough support for that. So I think that we should be able to check, like if we don't think that conversation has happened in the CTC, then that would be grounds for that. But I think that if we can guarantee the conversation has in fact happened and the college students have voted yes or no accordingly, then I think that should be strong. The other thing, Stephen, is like that's what I said about like the silos, is that I don't want them to exist. So like I'd really like for you personally to be like to go to all the CTCs, just like anybody else here, and be able to raise those concerns. Say, what are we doing about students? What are we doing about low-income students who are going to be disproportionately affected by this fee? And then based on that, kind of make that result.
Jack, I was just going to comment
Absolutely.
on the timeline. It won't work for this year, but I do think that we could ask the deans to have it submitted to the provost at the end of the fall semester,
Yes.
right before winter break.
Absolutely.
And then so we can get going sooner in the spring semester.
Absolutely.
It was tough to do it now,
Right.
but I think when we get done at the end, we're going to see we're too crunched for time.
Oh,
So
I
we
100% agree.
probably will want to move it a little more quick next year.
That's right.
So there should be flexibility to do that.
Yeah, I agree with that because so many of the fees are reactionary to a potential budget cut or something like that, that we've sort of lost the ability to look at, are you having a new cool idea that's going to benefit students and help them be more successful in the marketplace? I think we've sort of gotten away from that and we're focusing on these big budget cuts, which hopefully after tomorrow won't be happening much longer.
Keep dreaming.
Yeah. I just think what's happening.
I'll try.
Yeah. So it didn't get worse.
Yeah.
Brownback Junior.
So, first of all, thanks. So I think that's a great idea. Vice President Bontrager, I think that's an awesome idea. And that'll be something we talk about with the pros on Friday. Which, by the way, I'll send Tara an email to see if you're available in as well. So I'll write that down. But I kind of would like to see, before we talk about fee review, because fee review is a whole other deal, but I think Jonathan and I have a good idea on it. Would people feel comfortable taking a vote to, or somebody have to make a motion to approve the process and follow it for this year? And then we can vote on that accordingly. Or do we need more time? What are our thoughts?
Or do we need to take a vote?
I'd like to take a vote to make sure that if people absolutely hate this idea, then I want to respect that as well.
Do we have an idea of what CTCs need to be formed this year?
We will have a rough idea by Thursday.
On Thursday.
And hopefully a finalized idea sometime shortly after that.
I mean, I assume engineering, yeah.
Yeah.
And I've heard.
I assume architecture.
Ecology, so I think there's been discussion, right? in that college, so.
I heard today that arts and sciences will not be moving forward. Emails are going to be sent to students
Oh.
this week. So
I don't think Ag will have one.
Yeah, Don Bogster works for K-State. Ag won't have one.
I'm retired.
Okay, well, that's 2 claps for that, right? Okay, so that'd be 3. Could be 3. Dean Winter said he's not putting one forward today, which I said,
Oh,
good.
That's something I was supposed to bring up last time, is that not only is the College of Business not bringing one forward, which is very good, they're in the fall, or they're now in the process of making it official that they're going to reduce the number of total credit hours to get a degree in the college from 126 to 120, which will end up saving in-state students somewhere around $2,500 and out-of-state students somewhere around $5,000.
That's awesome.
That's really exciting for the college.
That's some good news tonight.
Yeah.
Take that one. Take our sciences.
That's a board of regents.
I'll say that's board.
They're not choosing to do that. They have to do that.
What? They don't have to reduce
They
it.
have to.
Everybody has to go to 120.
But there was exceptions that could be made to
They
keep it
would put KU's at
126.
120. They wouldn't.
What?
KU's already at 120. Their degrees are at 120. So.
That's not the story I got from the College of Business.
I'll back that.
Yeah.
Brian's story up there.
Academic affairs was like, they said that.
Well, he made it sound like it was monumental, so.
I think it is pretty monumental. Right? Yeah. All right.
Any update?
Yeah, go ahead.
Any update on the
Professional advantage?
professional advantage?
Pause. We'll go back to that. We'll go back to that. All right. So thoughts on approving the process
I so move.
this year? Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moving second. Yeah. Sorry, Trent. You walked in back with us. Do you have any questions about the?
Was there a summary, or was there a lot of discussion before I got here about what that would look like?
Let me see if I can boil it down real quick. So, chair would be one of the Jonathan and I co-chairs, and the TFSC member would become a voting member. Other kind of concerns we talked about. Help me out. For this year, though, it's just going to be that, or I guess for future years, that there would be interaction between the rep, the tuition and fee rep, and the dean early on to figure that out, maybe a part of the process, but the dean would still manage the college-wide outreach, and then the CTC would not form unless the provost allowed the fee to be taken forward.
Okay, cool.
So we're more voting based off the narrative than the document. Also on page 4 of the report, those bullet points are the things that we're specifically looking to ask for from each college, and that's something that we'll keep working on all year, particularly in the next couple of weeks, so we can communicate out to the deans what that CTC and TFSC will be looking at through the process.
Are you on that? Yeah, so those questions.
Yeah.
That's living now. Like, and I know that this is where Steve and I yelled at each other in the office the other week because he said, well, the page says this. And I said, yeah, I know. But you gotta have an eraser handy for you. So I know that's stress-inducing. It stresses me out too. All right, so it's been moved and seconded that we approve this process as delivered, I should say. All in favor of approving the process, please say aye. Oh, yeah, we lost.
Oh, can I move? I don't have a vote. I forgot.
So moved.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, second.
Any last kind of comments, debate points? I'll give one to start out that I think that this, like I said before, the reason why I think this is good is it provides some consistency amongst the colleges for the way this happens. I think that it better syncs SGA, SYNCS, not SINKS, better syncs SGA with the college students, and I think that it eliminates the discrepancies that might exist between a TFSC vote and if the college, supports it, and the TFSC is a system dramatically different. It helps to make that process more smooth. Other comments? All right.
Can I take Jack?
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
William,
Yes.
Nathan, Nathaniel,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
Dalton,
Yes.
Brian, Julia,
Yes.
Brett.
Yeah.
James.
Yes.
All right.
Will you mark Ryan as excused? He is in bed sick. It's too bad. Thank you. Who else are we missing, by the way?
Ryan and Dr. Bosco and Provost Mason.
Dr. Bosco, Provost Mason, both busy. We have 3 incredible administrators in here with us, or administrator by default. Congrats. Exactly. All right.
That's huge.
So, all right, now to get into this. If you thought that was a jumbled thought, just buckle your seatbelts, everybody. All right. So, fee review process. This is something that got brought up last week. Something that I think, honestly, just to be totally forward about, is always been a challenge because we have so many different, fees that are also the same. Like think about it's like the College of Business, for example, has a 3-phase fee. Are those 3 individual fees or are those 1 fee? I don't know how to. That's been a kind of a challenge to figure out. So then, if it's
3 individual fees.
right,
Yeah.
But I mean for the surcharges, and if a college comes and presents, but I mean in terms of the way we review it.
Okay.
Like if a college comes and presents and we just increase their fee, then do we need to go back and check, what their fee was 3 years ago? Because it's all fees are on a 3-year cycle. So last year was the first time that we reviewed fees, and it was ag and architecture. And so since we reviewed those, all the other fees had come up for review, or had come up for increases, with the exception of education, which doesn't have a fee. So I think a process though, which what we can do here is, first of all, creating a review schedule similar to that of our privilege fee. Year A, year B, and year C. And then for TFSC, year D, E, and F. So what that would look like is just basically when have each of the fees been increased or otherwise created. And so Jonathan and I talked today, we will separate them out into each individual increase or presentation. So for example, the College of Engineering, although all the surcharge now is, oh man, you gotta help me with the math here, VP.
So
It's something, and so that's great.
It should be $84.
$84.
Yep.
$84 right now, and only 19 of that you can section out as technology fee. We still would go back and review. So the existing fee is right now we're $19 in technology fee, $25 surcharge, and then a $15 addition to that, a $30 addition to that, and then that's all the engineering fees as of now. And so what we would do then is 3 years after each of those fees were passed, they would be up for a review. And so the challenge is honestly logistically that the review I think should really happen in the college tuition committee because that's where it's localized. However, one of the things that we had talked about is a lot of what this review is making sure that the money is being used as it was approved and that it's used appropriately. Now, there are cases in which part of that could be argued that, if we feel strongly that, I'll get to that. So that is our general, thought on that. So what I think could be a good solution, something that Dean Gwenner said might work, and Cindy, I apologize, it's brand new. I just met with him at noon today, but is that in those years where we're reviewing a fee, the dean would present a written report that would be submitted to the provost and the TFSC, this group right here. So we would review the fee and make sure that it was being used for its original intent. Now, if the fee was not being used for its intent, like if it was just not being used appropriately or not being, fully spent, for some reason, which I know that some of this is just not possible, right, Cindy? That a dean couldn't use technology fee and go buy something that wasn't technology.
Renovated classroom.
Like renovated classroom, right? There's some of that's a natural check to it, I assume.
They could totally do that because there's not a separate account for technology or something. So once you give them the money, sorry, I'm jumping in on you.
No, it's okay.
It goes in, there's not any process centrally that would control that, other than this committee?
Other than this committee's review, okay.
And
Okay.
the dean, there may be turnover with the dean and business officers too over time.
Right.
Arts and sciences is losing there, so that history gets lost.
Sure. Well, that is helpful then, and that probably reinforces the need for the reviews. But so, okay.
Can I ask a question of you, Cindy? So engineering they have the $75 or not $65 of fees
By surcharge.
of surcharges for faculty, and they have a $19 technology fee. So does that all just get lumped into a pot and thrown at them?
No.
Or
The state statute requires fees to be deposited into a restricted fees fund.
yeah.
And the surcharge, I think K-State, that goes in tuition. That's why it's called something different, because it was going towards faculty salaries. And so that's most of the faculty salaries were paid out of general use funds, tuition. So it is into two separate funds accounted for within the college, the colleges.
Okay.
So the fees are deposited into a restricted fees fund, goes directly to each college, and the surcharge now does that also, but it's in the tuition fund.
Okay.
So it can be kind of confusing. But.
So for example, the technology fee is in a restricted use fund that can only be used for technology purchases, or
No, there's no restriction as far as the state as how that fund can be spent. So it can be spent on salaries, it can be spent on whatever. So there's no oversight other than that.
Well, that is good that we,
And for us.
right, and for us, yeah, and for us. So, and I think, and that's something that Dean Winter and I talked about today, that obviously the timeline is strict, but assuming that we can, that's going tonight, that's what we can commit to and go forward with that the dean would present a written report that would go to the provost and this group, TFSC, and then like three basic scenarios. One, things check out, fees being used appropriately, the committee basically just accepts the report. Two, this committee accepts the report. Two, the money is not being utilized how it was originally intended. Or three, I'll go back 2 and 3 together. Or three, that something has dramatically changed, which requires a review, whatever that may be. Then, out of those cases 2 and 3, this committee could vote to create a college tuition committee, which would then hear from the dean, similar to how we did last year with ag and architecture, where the dean actually comes in and presents and says, here's what I'm using the fee for, here's why it needs to remain, basically. So that'd be our action on it. And then that's when we get into the typical review process.
Hey, could you repeat that one more time? So
Absolutely.
TFSC would create a TFSC.
TFSC would basically, they would vote to charge a college tuition committee to have further review of that fee.
And then report back to us.
And then go through a similar process like a new fee where the dean would come and present.
They vote on it.
That report back to us, yeah.
and so this committee would not have a piece in the review. Not that that's bad.
We would have a piece in the initial review though, because we would basically feed the CTC and say, hey, look, we think that $90 a credit hour, so I'm not saying this is the case, just throwing it out there. College of Engineering has $90 a credit hour accounted for technology, and their presentation, their report says they're only spending $14 per credit hour of that. Our charge with CTC is to remedy that situation or otherwise make a recommendation based on that, which could be repurposing, could be.
Talking about repurposing,
Yeah.
would this committee be willing to consider a college revising how that fee's being used without necessarily increasing it?
I think that's the CTC. I think that's the role of the college tuition committee to do that. Yeah.
With the new rule, but I wasn't sure previous to that. I can't recall that ever happening.
I don't think it's ever been able to happen. Just timing wise, I don't think. I mean, the first fees that we reviewed are.
But we would want to give them a little bit of flexibility.
Absolutely.
Right, because if something changes, and I can't think of a good example, but that they would at least come they need to come to the committee and explain.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So definitely Dean Winter's comment is,
And then you guys can decide whether it's.
right, that's Dean Winter's comment was like, what if there's a faculty line? What if it involves faculty? Is like, you need more lead time then, and I think we have to cross that. I think crossing the bridge we would need to provide lead time for that. Or like a sunset. So we could I think.
I haven't had one of those either.
Right. So I think for example, I think a recommendation could be, once again, this is totally out of left field. I don't think this is an issue because I see the technology needs in the College of Engineering. If we think they're only spending their $14, then for the next 5 years, there's a $1 decrease per year for the next 5 years for the College of Engineering is what we recommend to the president. But still, though, the challenge is timing. This is going to be crazy. I think this really should have been happening in November. 100% should have happened in November. And I wish we would have been committed to the process in November. So that's right.
So Jack,
Come back for a 5th year.
let me ask you a question.
Be the KU rep.
Yeah.
What if a dean, during his review, or he comes to the college tuition committee and wants to repurpose a fee,
Yeah.
and says, for example, maybe engineering says, I don't need this $19 for technology. Maybe I need 9 of it for a faculty surcharge. So he's already said that he doesn't need that $9 for the technology. What if the committee says, well, we don't think you need the $9 for faculty either? So would that mean the CTC would completely cut the fee away? Or the $9 away?
I think that could be the recommendation. But the other thing I think is this.
Might be why they haven't come back.
You would
Right.
you're gonna have to be careful. It's got to be an environment where they feel safe coming. You know what I mean? To otherwise they're gonna feed you guys information. You know what I mean? To make it look like.
And I know there's always
using
endless
but-
needs too. So.
But I think one of the things that we can be upfront and saying part of the review can be, I'd like to repurpose.
Well, I think,
I'm missing some questions here. Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
Oh.
With proof fee, we do audits.
Oh.
I was wondering.
All right, I'm listening. Thank you.
When we review privilege fee requests, we have an audit the year before. So we have audited the money that we gave out to know that how it was used. Do we want to have a process? If that's.
And annual reports.
Yeah, an audit.
I mean,
and
with
annual
proof fee,
reports
we
and-
really keep an eye on things.
An
And I don't know-
audit instead of an annual report. Sorry, I was.
We have
Yeah.
both.
There's both in Frisbee.
We have an audit and annual report.
The audits.
Steve up to the challenge.
So the example was brought forward, what if we want to take a surcharge and we want to break it into a surcharge and a fee? I think that if they're going to repurpose a fee, it should be like for like a surcharge for a surcharge, a fee for a fee. If they're planning on saying, well, we don't need the full, forgive me, $19 for technology fee for College of Engineering, we need more faculty, that sounds like a new proposal to me, more than a repurposing. So you could, so the dean could come in and say, I need $10 for this, but I will also be coming back to you guys, CTC, with $10 of faculty stuff that I think is important for the college.
And they could justify it by saying, hey, we're lowering the technology fee.
Yes, so this is actually a fee continuance rather than an increase.
So I think that could, I think that's when we would be able to make the decision that rather than, so you're charging the college tuition committee, which is a college tuition committee, which is a college tuition committee. Doesn't matter if they're reviewing or they're looking at a new fee. And I think the proposal, rather than saying, hey, I'm going to justify this decrease and switch over, I think it should be a quid pro quo, which is like my proposal, me, D. Dawson, proposing to the college of, or to the CTC is I'm going to decrease my technology fee by $5 and I'm going to increase my surcharge by $5. Evaluate that.
And about the only thing, that might not allow for like an audit the previous year by a committee, because if you're auditing, then you'd be talking at the next year's committee saying the dean's gonna come in and make a re-proposal maybe. Unless you just want someone else to do the audit, the review a year ahead of time and then take the audit to the dean and to next year's committee. Be outside of of this committee or the CTC's purview.
So you're not sure I'm catching what you're saying.
Okay, so I don't know who's conducting the audit.
Steve Lefevre.
Okay, so not us. So they could.
Right, I mean,
He's an actual internal auditor for the
Okay.
university.
sorry, yeah.
Two staff, so he's the director and then there's two staff.
Yeah, at least up until now, any sort of audit that's been conducted has just been internally in a particular college by the college students. Like whoever, I was in College of Arts and Sciences. We had a fee. 3 years later, the dean came back and was like, here's what we have, I need another fee. So that's about the only sort of review that I ever saw Arts and Sciences getting for their fee. But if we kick this out and we send it to somebody who's a third party in this, who does the audit the previous year, sends a letter to the dean, says, here's how we see you're spending your money, and they send it to the next year's CTC or the current year's, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Then that's a more quality review. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah.
And I don't see a problem with maybe more like a privilege fee cycle, like audit and then review.
So I think that's a brilliant idea because, and we could easily, so like right now there's a schedule for the audits, right? All the audits are scheduled.
We have a schedule when they come for us, and we have a separate schedule of when they don't.
Well, and like I'd say, it's fresh in my mind, they just presented at Fiscal Affairs last month, right? And so,
Yes.
But they do privilege fee audits every year, but it's just different groups.
yes.
For different groups, yeah.
Yeah, whereas I think that
Does
when
that
we
make
could,
sense? So he's always has them on there, but it's just different.
so perhaps then, if it's an audit instead of if it is an audit instead of a internal fee review, we could establish a cycle where it's rather than each individual fee, the audit is of the entire college. Or like, does that, not the entire college, but the entire college that fees, restricted use dollars of the college.
Outside of the fee?
No.
Are you talking like the
Right,
tuition
that's
fees?
I just mean instead of like, because we're not gonna tell the internal auditor, hey, review the technology fee, right?
I heard you said go to ag and review all of the restricted fees.
No, sorry.
That's huge.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, all of their things funded by the fees. Sorry, not like grants and stuff. That's, yeah. Yeah.
So just looking at that revenue source.
Just the revenue source that it's.
And how it's being expended.
Exactly.
Would be what, that would be, I'm assuming the scope of work they do with privilege fee now. So it would be similar.
Right.
Is what I've gotten.
That's it's exactly right. Sorry, I way misexplained that. But like, I'm just saying, rather than being like, all right, engineering review the $19 surcharge, then the first two increases to the surcharge, or $19 fee, the first increase to the surcharge, it'd just be everything to date, every fee or surcharge revenue stream.
Yeah, because it's all kept in separate project
Expenditures.
tracks, so they can report out this much revenue generated, this is what he spended, these are
Perfect.
categories of expenditures, you can see if there were salaries, and these are related, that type of thing.
Perfect, yes.
So they can follow through and.
Because, for example, if you had a tuition, if you had I think that'd be really transparent process. Then with like our technology fee, if you saw that is how much it generated, but then the numbers were off and we weren't spending that on technology, then like that would be, I think, telling of that would probably be a cause for developing that CTC. Yeah, these questions.
Call
So
for questions. Yeah.
So that Heather wins the award tonight. like most days, yeah, I was gonna say. Heather probably win the award tomorrow too, but
So simplifying it, so far we've not really been following our practice of a 3-year review of each fee by when the fee was created.
Exactly.
So we'll move more into a privilege fee thing saying that the college is an entity. So there will be a 3-year review of the TFSC approved fees and surcharges to a particular college.
That's what I'm thinking.
I thought we were reviewing them more frequently than the 3 because they were coming back and asking for an increase, and then you reviewed them all.
So, and that's what we got into last time is like
That's what I heard.
is that question of like, well, so hold on. That's I want to. So that's I love talking about the more frequency thing. But is that possible? Does that make sense? Like for what we could do, asking for a review every so often of the expenditures from the revenues.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want.
Right.
If they're coming.
But I just mean we have the.
Yeah.
need that right.
You can do whatever you want.
Freezing tuition. Exactly.
I think they're asking Cindy, is there capacity?
Is there capacity?
I think it's
with
what
our
is there
internal.
capacity to do it, or are they gonna have to go out and hire new people or?
So if we're talking about the deans coming in and presenting, that's what I thought they had been doing. If we're talking about internal audit, doing a review of it, they most likely would need more support. And then we could look at a graduate student, something like that to help. I don't think it'd be a full-time FTE. You all do pay. I don't know rates. I'm not involved with that at all. But there is some support that goes back to internal audit for doing those reviews.
I think it's like 6,000 or
So,
18,000.
I mean, I'm not
One of those
sure
two
what
numbers
the-
come to mind.
18.
That's it, yeah, 18,000 for those reports. We probably get, and perhaps 5-6 audits a year.
Yeah, perhaps we look at
Yeah.
that. But so that was okay. So getting into this discussion. First of all, I just want to kind of take everybody's temperature. Okay, we're actually not doing horribly on time. If we can survive another 15 minutes or so. Is that okay? Okay. But take everybody's temperature. How are we feeling about this idea? I mean, different than what I presented initially, which is fine, but of an audit, looking at audits, and then if there's an issue with the audit, then we reform the CTC. Okay, thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle. Okay, cool. That's good stuff. So Cindy, that was something that we talked about last time, which I think what got brought up is an example of businesses' professional advantage fee. So even though business has come back the last 3 years and has looked and we've evaluated their basically progress to date with the surcharge, we have not ever evaluated specifically the professional advantage fee. And I think that's needs to be, yeah. And the other thing was I think that's the beauty of what with this group, if we look at the business fee, or if we look at if business is in cycle, then I think we can easily say, even if the audit looks good, this is up for discussion, but even if the audit is clean, which is a weird word to use, but even if the audit, is that right? Even if the audit's clean, that everything's being spent how it's supposed to be, but we think that professional advantage fee is just too high and that XYZ, I think that would be grounds for the creation of a CTC to look at. And Dean Winter said that, he said, I'm worried about the impact of that if I have faculty lines, but he even said today that he thinks that would be okay conversation to have. So, hear from the Dean.
So let's talk implementation. Let's talk implementation. So are we talking audit this year and then our first review? Actual review of the fee, would that be next year? Because I don't
The audit
know
plan's already done for 18.
Exactly.
So I think if you're looking at an audit, it would probably need to be built into 19.
Yeah.
Now, I would still have a conversation with Steve Lefevre to see, because things do change, but what he presented to the board last month was his audit plan for 2018.
His Q, right? That's kind of what it was.
You guys are talking about calendar years, not school years.
We are talking about calendar.
We're talking about calendar.
For some crazy reason, they do that on the calendar. Everything else is
the most fiscal department on campus.
Yeah.
Not the only thing more.
Yeah.
I was going to do any more fiscal is kinesiology, get it, okay. Laugh, please clap.
So it looks like this academic year and next academic year, have that sort of a full-time internal audit of these fees. So should we start an informal review process?
So that's what I was gonna say. I think
I would have a conversation with Steve and see, I mean, and are you talking, I'm assuming if you're gonna split up, there's what, 9 colleges that have, or 8, you would split it up, you wouldn't do all 8 in 1 year. So if you figure out what your timeline is, that it may be possible that he could try to get it in next fall, and if not, for sure, in next spring.
you know what
So
else,
it is, this year 18, but it would be 19.
you know what else we could do, Stephen, is we could prioritize just totally arbitrarily create the schedule that the ones that we are concerned about. Or I'm not saying that there's a
Yes.
if there's a need for review, which for example I think business is going to be. I'm sorry, I just personally speaking, I think business is number 1 on our list because that's been. I mean, there's a fee in there that Dean Gwinner said is really 5 years old. So, with professional advantage.
Also, one thing I wanted to add about that fee that I didn't know, Sarah, is that it only takes one class of years to be enrolled in that fee, and you pay the full $100. So like he's only taking 1 class a semester in the College of Business, and he pays $100. I'm taking 5 right now, and I only pay $100.
I didn't know
It's
that.
not based on major.
I thought it was really.
No, it's based on a minor, major and minor.
And certificate.
I don't think it's by course.
No, it's not, but it's by major minor certificate. You should have a lot of people in the entrepreneurship or professional sales. What?
Even before I had the minor.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Sure, yeah.
Well, last semester.
Well, so here's
I can look
You
back.
can look and see how it's.
Sorry. That's good. No, I appreciate that. We're trying to shut down. Trying to keep it all together. So I call it business number 1. The other thing is, so Stephen, I think what we can do is we can say, give us about, so we have 2 weeks until our next meeting. So John and I are meeting with Provost on Friday. We'll see if we can, we'll meet with, well, we'll touch base on talking to
Yeah.
Steve.
Fran's group can help with how it's being, the business mentoring fee, how we're assessing it, so I can get that.
If somebody could take care of that before,
Yeah, I
that's
will
gonna
take
be
care of
awesome.
that.
That'd be great.
And then-
Delegate to Fran.
And then I think that,
I just emailed them.
but what I think we can do though is, then once we have an idea about that, what's possible this year, let's say our timeline truly is that we can't have an audit until whenever, next,
Well, let's say next academic.
let's say the fall of 19, then what we can do is, or fall of 18, sorry, we can ask Dean Gwinner to come and present on the fee for review this year. That's what we see.
So maybe what we do is we put 3 colleges that are a little bit easier to look at, such as education. They don't have a fee. Well, and maybe others that have like 1.
Boom, we should be on it. They're spending great.
So we look at those this year, and maybe the ones we're most concerned about next year. So like College of Business fee next year. So that we have a full official audit, so we have all the information, make a hopefully wise decision. So maybe put things that we can understand a little bit more.
Okay.
Plan.
Yeah.
Here we go.
That should be an exciting conversation Friday morning.
Well, working for the next 2 weeks.
Sounds good. All right. So, any thoughts on that process? I don't want to vote on anything because we don't know if what's possible or not. But the general thumbs up, thumbs down.
I have a question. So is that gonna increase, where's that money coming from?
Yeah.
To do the audit, you
Is
mean?
that gonna increase the fee?
Well, so that's what I want to hear from.
That's what I'm.
I think it was.
See, aren't you glad that Brooklyn Chair serves on this committee?
Yeah, we tried to change
It's
it.
brilliant design, right?
It's got to come from somewhere.
Because we don't have the internal ability to.
Sorry for that astute observation.
Wichita State or K-State?
So, okay.
You like a fee for service setup? Or is it? Okay.
Yeah.
So they don't audit anything for you all.
I wonder if
I mean,
it comes out.
Excuse me? They do audit from the university.
Right, but it's all, each is a fee.
No,
No, we
this was-
pay in,
this was,
We pay a fee.
we pay in bulk,
Mhm.
regardless of the number of
I wonder if
I just don't
we.
know the contract, so we could probably need to look at.
So I wonder. The other thing is, I wonder if that's.
The contract's been sane for a while.
I wonder if. So we look. Let's pull that out, Sarah. If you want to leave that one.
Is it what's in our statutes?
I'll be honest with you, we've added a few more reviews.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Well, we've been emailing him about that right now.
There have been
What's
some
that?
recent
We've been talking right now.
Oh, okay.
You
Yeah.
and Steve.
Yeah, because our schedule thing was not up to date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All messed up.
So.
That's his fault.
Yeah.
All right. But I almost wonder if it's like how much it would be. Yeah, I thought so. Numbers. So.
Assuming they can do 6 or 7 for $6,000 or $18,000, it'd probably be somewhere less than 9.
3 year. Yeah. Okay.
Not to throw numbers, but
We'll just have a conversation
Sounds
and
good.
figure out those logistics. I would love to be able to, sure, the universities will take it on, but
Well, that's what I
as
wonder.
all of us are shrinking, we truly are.
I wonder, like,
And their staff is slim.
I wonder if, like, since it's an academic department, if there's not. Since Provost isn't here, I wonder if she can pay for it. So that could be.
I like that.
I
will
heard
not,
you
I
friend
will,
that
I will
much
not
money.
commit the provost money.
I was gonna say.
My part-time.
Allow them to use their feet to cover the audit.
Oh man, that's what we should do.
Oh, man.
you think the love is there.
I'm gonna wait to Bill engineering until after graduating, but that's fine with me.
Wait till that diploma's.
Yeah, I was gonna say, wait till that is signed, sealed, delivered. Now here's your fee. All right. Okay, so in interest of time, I don't want to keep everybody past 8:15 or so, but I guess just kind of moving forward now that we have this, like we'll let everybody know kind of what's possible this year. We can determine that. We'll know what fees are coming down the line. So, and then tuition priorities, we're gonna table that one for later until we have a chance to talk about that at least. So I guess criteria and standards for fees. If we're okay to move into that discussion here real quick.
So is this the page 4 of that report, that list?
No. So that's separate. So this is, okay, so just to clarify, so like this page 4 that we were talking about, if you have any additions to this or any questions or changes, please send those to me. Stephen already is, which I appreciate, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, excellent. So send those to me, which includes even if like so I will probably send something similar to this list. So like Stephen had even changed a wording in there today. So like I appreciate that as well. So truly send edits to that. But that's kind of like what we're looking for the dean to present on. But what I'm talking about is criteria and standards for fees is what Dr. Bosco brought up last time, which is that do we want to set some sort of standard for what we want to see? So like last year, for example, there became this unofficial standard that we never voted on or anything, but it was the terminology dire need. Right? I mean, that got tossed around and I don't, so.
That's because you had the privilege of being community chair.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And we use that term a lot.
All right, Jonathan, so you take this one.
You came up with that.
I'm going to bow out and go.
Yeah, how there's really no good definition. It's very arbitrary, like it was last year. That's yeah.
I use it in my conversation with arts and sciences individuals that are working on a fee, and the way I explain it is it can't just be frivolous. It can't just be something that like we want to provide for students. There has to be a good, solid reasoning as to why this is pivotal to their experience in arts and sciences, to their education.
One thing I would probably suggest would be better wording for us as a committee to consider is instead of saying dire need, maybe saying something along the lines of like justified need. Because if a college can make the case that this will help, and they can justify the reasons. We asked that in Priv fee on that reviews. You need to justify why you need the fee, and then also justify why you need the fee at the level it's at. And so I think if you can justify why it's needed, and you can prove that you have college support, then I think that's the point where it's like, well, dire need or not, the students recognize it, faculty recognize it, the administrators of the college recognize it.
And I think that was last year. Like, for example, I don't know if it was dire need because there were still business students that could sit for the CPA, but like the presentation was about like we don't have a business law class offering, so we need to hire somebody for that because that would allow students to sit the CPA more easily. So it's like that was a justified need that we saw. Also, we don't have to decide this tonight. Like, I just want to get this conversation going because I think that Dr. Bosco had a good point, which is like we're talking about consistency. Let's be consistent then
So
on our end of things as well.
is this a charge to a CTC, a charge to a TFSC, or something that hangs over the whole process and says, this is what everyone is looking at when we're thinking for fees? Or is that something that we will define over these next few weeks?
I think this is something that is a little more broad scale. I think that like the first part of the college tuition committee is that it's kind of like, here's our vision for what's acceptable. Not that that's binding, and not that that's binding, and not that that's something that like if a student like I guess disagrees with in the college, like it's not like a force. Like you have to think of this mindset. But I just think that for consistency purposes, it'd be nice to have something written down. Because last year it was like dire need, dire need, dire need. How dare you not have dire need? I was like, that's kind of cute if you've been part of the conversations, but like if you haven't been, it's like, what the hell are you talking about? So having that as consistent.
And what?
Excuse me, not dire need.
But what designs what dire need means.
Right.
So
I think that I think that probably what's best here is put the committee members to work. Miranda, you want to take the lead on this bad boy? And we can kind of develop some verbiage that can be like, here's what we see as a good fee, like unnecessary. I picked Miranda because she thinks well like that.
And Miranda, I might suggest you work with Sarah, steal some of that prithee language, because that may be a good point to start from and work from there. So.
Does the provost issue like a call for proposals? Like, how does that work? Like,
So
could this be something that the provost could put in her call?
Absolutely.
Or
So
whatever future gender the provost is?
She
Right.
has to communicate that to the deans, the process, so it makes sense.
So we're gonna have to do a whole other process. We're gonna have to do a whole other talk with the deans here with all this. But truth be told, this is the form that we're using. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is something that Reagan Kayes and Julia. So Reagan Kayes was student body president, and Julia Keene when she was faculty senate president. So predecessors developed together through a special committee, and I mean that's kind of what we've been using. It's on the SGA website. So Dean DeNoble sent me an email and he was like, hey, send me the application. I want to apply for a fee. And I said, well, should you know Dean DeNoble is just awesome. I read it in his accent too. And so I sent it to Craig and I was like, we need to talk to Craig. And then Craig sent me back. I was like, no, you need to talk to Jack. And then I think I ended up just walking into his office. But anyway, so there's a little confusion as to that. But I don't know. That was kind of an interesting story I want to tell anyway. But to your question, yeah, that could absolutely be something we could work on as well. And I know that got brought up last year as well with like, I know Trent McGee had kind of brought forward this concern about fee versus surcharge. And because our application is truly for a fee, Trent was like, let's just not consider any surcharges.
We should, yeah.
So, yeah. The dreams, we're thinking the same thing. As we anyway.
One of the same.
Yeah.
Like along the same lines of wanting to standardize the amount of feedback you get from students, like we mentioned earlier, I feel like that's something we can put in with the justification of fees. You know, requiring that survey, not just do you agree with the fee, but also do you think your dean adequately justified the fee to you? Because I feel like as TFS,
oh, there you go.
You know, if in the College of Business it takes 2 semesters to process like changing your major, then yeah, they need more money for major support. You know, but I can't justify that because I've never taken it. I literally looked at what the college names are during this week. I didn't know.
There you go. Which, yeah, and that's a good point. It's like, and maybe some of our wording is, or our wording would be for the deans as well as here's our kind of criteria. But then I think the other wording is for CTC that's perfect point. Is say, here's what this means for your evaluation measures. Like, here's basically our advice to you to how to go about this.
Like if college architecture students think they need X, then they need X, you know?
Sure. What do you need, Nate?
Technology.
Cool. Sounds good. Yeah. The other thing is, let's chat after this, Brett, about vet med tuition fees. I have a good chat. I have an answer for your question 3 months late. All right. Other kind of thoughts on this? I think that, like I said, I'd like for folks to work on it. Talk to Miranda. She wants to take lead on that. Appreciate her being voluntold to do that. Next one. I owe you one. Other thoughts? Concerns? We're meeting again on the 13th at 6 p.m. in here. We'll have a great conversation then, and then I'll have an idea. We'll have an idea about future meeting times from there. So I apologize. There's not anything on the calendar. However, I will say generally, if it's going to be a meeting, it's going to be Tuesdays at 6. So I understand things come up. However, I will say that's, if you can, keep that open, please. And let me know if you have any issues with that. And also, finally, Olivia, can you talk about where documents are for review and stuff like that?
Yes. So I think Kristen's working on, or we'll be working on creating up an OrgSync team page, so we'll be able to send out communications to OrgSync. You'll be able to see that. But I've also created a folder for this year's TFSC, and there's going to be a minutes folder in there. So each meeting I'll send them out through there. For now, I'm just going to be emailing them to you until we get that set up. But they'll all be there. There's also a document uploaded in that TFSC 2018 folder of the links to all of our meetings, the live stream, or not live streams, but the recordings, the videos that we get to watch everyone's massive heads during the meeting. So there'll be a link for each one of those dates. And then Jack and Jonathan will also upload any handouts that will be passed on throughout the year. I will throughout the rest of this committee's meeting time. So I'll send out that link to OrgSync along with tonight's minutes via email this time, and then in future it will probably be through OrgSync.
And then Bill Harlan takes the videos that this is just like a raw MP4 video. He puts them on YouTube because they're too big to send, but he puts them on YouTube. So I'll touch base with him on doing that. I think I forgot to send the last one.
So old person clarification. Can we access OrgSync?
Yes.
Okay.
I will look you up.
To be added to the SJ portal.
I knew you guys could. I just didn't know, if she puts stuff there, like, are we going to be able to go see it too?
Because we thought about, like, I know.
Go and look at all my minutes. They're public.
Okay.
So I talked to Tara about creating like a Canvas page, but I think that since SGA is all OrgSync, I'd like to keep
No,
it.
I think it's fine.
So
It makes
that
sense.
works.
I just wanted to clarify what.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Should I be adding Cindy and Provost Mason to our OrgSync portal as well?
Yeah. That'd be great. Dr. Bosco as well. I'm to add Linda Henderson as well. All right. Thanks so much, everybody, for your time. Sorry it's getting late. Greatly appreciate all of your good questions and hard work and communication and everything else that is great in that realm. So have a great rest of your week. See you soon. Yep.